Hello, hello, welcome to episode 28 of the Brew from the Bothy podcast. Hello, hope you're all well. I am fresh back from Madrid, so I'm feeling chilled and a little bit sunned and just generally in a very good place, which is nice. We had a great time, but I will, if you're interested in a little bit of Madrid, I'll tell you about that towards the end of the episode. Let's just crack on and let me start with what I am wearing. I don't think I've ever shown you this jumper before. It is called Hay and it was in, I think it was issue 3 of Laine magazine. The designer is Claire from Sister Mountain and it's a modified drop shoulder done in panels. And the reason that I'm showing it to you today is because I want to reclaim the yarn. I don't love this neckline. It feels a bit like it doesn't know if it's round and it doesn't know if it's V. And I think Claire maybe changed the pattern when she got the rights back and changed the neckline of this. And I adore the yarn. It is Yarnadelic Badida, excuse all the bits of fluff, by John Arbon Textiles, and it's got brown in there and a little bit of orange and a kind of like magpie greeny blue in there as well. So it's a really beautiful yarn and I want it back. I could do the work to kind of reclaim the jumper and change the neckline, but it's worked bottom up. I would have to undo the sleeve, undo the front panel, re-knit the front panel, and then redo it all. And I just think I like the jumper, but I don't think I like it enough to do all of that work with it. And I'd almost rather reclaim the yarn and knit something completely new with it. So that's kind of why I'm wearing it today, as like a little bit of accountability with all of you to say I'm gonna frog this back. There's another reason for doing it, which is that I just bought a really good handheld steamer, which I wanted to try and use it instead of wet blocking everything and it taking a while to dry off. I thought I would try a little cheaty method with a steamer. Got it second hand from Vinted for 20 quid. It was a really decent one. So I want to frog all of this yarn back and test steaming it to straighten out the yarn as well. I did the whole wet blocking thing. I did all of that work on that side of a blog post, and now I want to try it with the steamer to see if there's a little shortcut that I can apply. And given that this jumper was knitted years ago, when I unravel and frog this yarn, it's going to be very kinky, so it'll be a really good test on whether the steaming method will work for straightening out yarn. So I can get the yarn back, I can get a jumper that I will hopefully be happier with when I re-knit the yarn, and I can get a blog post out of the work that I will do to frog this back. And hopefully it will lead to me having a jumper that I'll wear more often. So I really enjoyed making this pattern. It's just that the reality of this neckline, it just feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's like it wants to be round and then it goes, no, I want to be a V. And I prefer something that's a little more rounded and maybe a little bit tighter in as well. So I'm wearing it to show that I'm going to change it up and I'm going to frog this and make something different out of it. I will pop details in case you are interested in it. I'll put a link to Claire at Sister Mountain with her own pattern, and I'll also tell you which Laine issue it is. I'm fairly sure it's 3, but I will double check and put it in the drop down notes, because you might already own this pattern, and then you might just want to change the sequencing for the neckline. Maybe you love this, in which case use the pattern as it is. I will pop that information in. So next up for you, something that I haven't shown you before. Because we went on holiday, obviously I started 2 new projects, even though I had other things on the go, but they were either so close to finishing or too bulky with the amount of yarn that I thought I may as well just start a new project. So crochet wise, I took out a balled up skein of yarn, which is delightful. It's mainly undyed, but it has these little blips of rusty orange, and there are little kind of browny bits and bluey bits in there, and they appear every now and then, which I'll show you. But the yarn I bought maybe just over a year ago when I was at Unravel Festival, and it's from the Camels yarn. This is the only skein of their yarn that I currently own. There will be more at some point. The actual yarn itself is their linen fingering. It comes in at its very standard 100 grams, 400 meters, 437 yards. And the blend is 50% alpaca, 25% linen, 25% silk. And this colourway is strandline. So when I had to look on their website to put details in for the show notes, I don't think they've got specifically strandline anymore. But there are other yarns that don't look dissimilar to this, with very natural and colours, and then just little blips of colour in there. So you can get something not dissimilar. The colourways that the Camels yarn do, they're based down in Cornwall, and I think heavily inspired by Cornish scenery. They're absolutely beautiful. They're very muted tones. They're not going to be really bright and like in your face unicorn colours, but if you like muted tones, then I would say this is a really good option for you. I am loving working with this yarn. In particular, I'm loving crocheting with it because it is creating the most beautiful drape. So what I am making with it is a reversion of my Omni shawl, and I'm redoing this shawl to give myself another sample because this is a shawl that I don't think gets enough love, and I'm wondering if it's just, sometimes it can be the colours that I've done it in, the photography, and I just think I can redo it, show it in a different light, and show up this pattern in a different light basically. So it's a really simple asymmetric shawl. It actually can be worked up in lace, sport, 4-ply, all the way up to worsted. So in the one pattern you get all of the details, and it's a perfect one skein. You just need 100 grams. You could actually probably make it in 50 grams of lace weight if you wanted, but for all of the other weights I would say go 100. And you can see what the pattern's doing. You've got this build of the filet crochet, so 2 sections on this one, then it will go to 3, and basically with the pattern you can just keep on going until you've used up all of your yarn. So it's a great little stash buster, and if you've got one of those little special skeins of yarn sitting in your stash that you don't know what to do with, give Omni a try. But as I've been working through it, I can see ways that I can maybe improve the pattern a little bit in the way I've laid it out, so I'll be undertaking that work with it too. But yeah, Omni is what I'm making with it. The drape on it is just incredible. Let me show you. You can see all those little blips, little yellow rusty orange bits. I don't think the bluey brown bits are showing up particularly well, but they are in there every now and then. There's a little blip of that. So one of the reasons this has got drape is because of the blend. So, you know, that alpaca, linen, the silk is going to give drape, but also it's this stitch. This is a herringbone half treble, herringbone half double in US terminology, and it is one of the flattest crochet stitches that you can get. And because you do an extra little piece before you do your final yarn round hook and pull through all the loops, what it does is it stops that very obvious row that you would normally get within, if it was just standard half treble, you always get this kind of horizontal loop. You don't get that with a herringbone half treble, and you get this kind of slanted weave. On one end it goes, one row side it goes that way, and then on the other side it kind of reverses itself out, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, but when you do, it's just like the most magical stitch to use, particularly if you use it in rows, because it counteracts itself, and it produces drape. It's beautiful. I'll pop a link if you've never tried herringbone half treble before, or treble. You can do both. I'll pop links below to photo tutorials and video tutorials that I've got in case you want to give it a go. For my money, it's like they're two of the best crochet stitches you could ever advance to, because drape, they're just beautiful. So Omni I will keep on going with, and we'll see how far I get before the next podcast. The other thing that I do with the shawls, you keep a little bit back and you create a tab, and then when you go to wear it, you can feed your little end through the tab, and it means that the shawl sits on you and it doesn't fall off because you've basically secured it through a loop on the shawl itself. So hopefully I'll have this done for next time and I can show you what that looks like, and I will be wearing this shawl. I've linked down to Camels yarn down below in the show notes. Go and have a look at them. I know Beautiful Knitters also stock them. I'm sure some other yarn shops do as well. And if you see them at a yarn show, go and have a squish, because they have got some beautiful bases. And like I say, like the cohesion of colours is really nicely done. Great indie dyer. So that is Omni, and that's working up fairly quickly. I've got some more work to do on that today. That is what is on my needles. Sorry, on my hooks. I always get them mixed up. So we're going to move on to on my needles. Again, this is new because I wanted something new to take away, and I have flown through this project. I bought a kit for the Weatherhouse shawl from Susan Crawford way back in November when I was at the River Knits Stollen and Volla Festival. And this was going to be for my mum's Christmas. It might be for her Christmas 2026, because clearly it didn't turn up for 2025. And look at those colour sequences. So I said that 2026 was the year that I wanted to try lots of different colour work techniques. And it might be a little bit cheaty, but I'm going to say that slip stitch is a colour work technique, because the yarn from 2 rows below gets used up to 2 rows further up to create what looks like a little bit of a colour work blip going right the way through these rows within the knitting. So it's not like doing stranded colour work or Fair Isle. You're not carrying 2 colours at the same time, but there was a way of just moving the stitch up 2 rows so that you get this blend of colours coming into the row above. I have loved working on this shawl. It's actually, this is the top of the shawl. So it starts off with some fairly large stripes, and I think stripes are a really good thing to take. A striped project is a great thing to take away on holiday, because I was just like, just another colour, just another colour. And we had a couple of days, well, a couple of afternoons where we sat in the big park in Madrid. It's called the Retiro Park, and the weather was so good that we could just sit there. Matthew was reading his book. I was listening to Romantasy in my earbuds, knitting away, watching life go past, watching, the people of Madrid do their thing and enjoy the park. And so I managed to get loads of work done on this and thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's going to be a triangle shawl. The pattern itself, I'll pop a picture up, is meant to have loads of tassels on it. I don't want to use the tassels, and tassels can be quite yarn hungry, so what I did instead was added an extra row of repeats in the slip stitch pattern. I have also run out of the yellow though, so I won't have as much of the yellow going down. I don't think that's an issue. The whole point is it looks like a fairly scrappy project in the nicest possible sense. So I don't think that will show up. I don't think anybody's going to say to my mum when she wears it, you don't have an extra yellow band in there that you should have. So I'm going to keep on cracking on with this. It will be done in no time at all. Don't have that much left to do. It gets finished off with a very simple garter stitch border, and then I suspect I'm going to have quite a bit of yarn left over, because I've still got, although I've run out of the yellow almost, I've still got some fairly chunky nuggets left. And these were 25 gram minis. There were 7 of them in total. So anything I've got left, I think I will make myself a pair of scrappy socks with. thoroughly enjoyed it, thoroughly recommend the pattern. I will link below to both the kit and the standalone pattern if you want on Susan's website. I'm actually thinking that I might remake this for myself in all my earthy tones. You might remember I got a little mini sock set from Loom when I was at Unravel this time round, and I'm just wondering if maybe I do myself a dirty earthy version of this for me to wear. We'll see. But it's one of those makes where I've enjoyed it so much that I could finish knitting this one and start knitting another one straight away. Like, that is the beauty of these quick colour stripes, and having the slip stitches, and also the fact that it's really easy to memorise, so I don't need to take the pattern. I can just go, and once I've got the first set of colour section in, then I know how to repeat it further out. So thoroughly enjoyable knit. Off my needles, and I'm going to cover this a little bit with some of the incoming yarn, because obviously what you do on holidays, you visit 6 different yarn shops in the city and you write a blog post about them. And one of the yarns I picked up, and you'll see why this comes round to Off My Needles, is by Katia, and it's called Silky Lace. So Katia is like one of the main Spanish yarn brands. A lot of their stuff is made in Spain, some of it is made in Italy, but that's not unusual because a lot of fancy yarns with like mohair in them tend to be made in Italy. It's where the expertise lies. So between Spain and Italy, Katia does, I think, most if not all of their yarn production. So it's a very localised yarn to buy, even though it's commercial. I haven't got any Katia or any amounts of Katia in my stash, so I really wanted to have a look and get some Katia yarn so I can offer it as yarn substitutes within my patterns, because it's widely available throughout Europe. So I picked this up, and you wouldn't immediately think that it's going to work for socks, but that's what I'm going to try it with. So Off My Needles this time round, I had showed it to you, is the little kind of heavy lace weight trainer sock that I was testing out. I wore this, I haven't washed it yet, I wore this on the day that we jumped in a car and headed into the mountains and did a day of walking. So these have been put through their paces. They have felted up nicely, but this is a mix of 30% linen, 70% wool. I think I probably need to come down by about at least 4 stitches, maybe 8, but they were comfy to wear, they were warm. I didn't feel the stitches through them. They have really felted up a lot. I'm slightly concerned that I'll run through them in the toe, but we'll see how much the linen holds up. So I've kind of proven the concept that smaller stitches are more comfortable for my feet when I'm doing big walks. So knowing that, that's why I bought the Silky Lace, because it is actually a blend of 80% wool and 20% silk, and the silk can act as like the nylon content in socks. And whilst on face value it maybe looks like, because it's a twisted roving, there's no plying to it at all, so it might look like that's not going to have enough structure in it. Actually, it's got really decent strength to it. And I think this is going to be really, like, that took some effort for me to snap it, like not dissimilar to the effort that I would require for snapping sock wool with nylon in it. So I'm thinking that this on 2mm needles might create a really like floofy trainer sock. I only got 50 grams. The shop didn't have any more of it. This is it. This is my one chance to prove this concept. But and then if it works, I will look for more heavy lace weight yarn like this. This one is coming in at 260 meters over 50 grams. So it's not dissimilar to this, but I think it's going to create a very different sock. So this was like proof of concept. I'm now not going to make any more walking socks with this yarn, but I know that the smaller, the lighter weight yarn works, so now I'm testing different elements with that. This probably sounds like an awful lot of like work and research into getting the perfect socks for and using the perfect sock yarn for walking, but it's the difference between being able to do like day-long hiking and not, and just having really sore feet. So for me personally, I believe that all of this research is worth it, because it means I can get out on the hills more often and be really comfortable while I'm out there. And the minute your feet ache and are painful and blister, that's it. It's kind of game over, because every footstep then is much, much harder. Whereas if your feet are comfortable, cool, warm when they need to be warm, but the comfort in particular, and with moisture wicking away, that makes all the difference. So worth the research. I'm going to try these out. I'll let you know how I get on with them. I now need to tell you about some incoming yarn. There's quite a lot, but I can explain myself. Look, there's more over there as well. I can explain myself. Madrid has so many yarn shops. Like, there were 6 that I visited. There were another 2 that I would have liked to have visited. And there were more like further out from the city centre that I didn't get to. It's just a very yarn-based city, which is really great. And what I loved in particular is there was one shop that really just did Katia yarns. They had some other stuff in there, but Katia was their main thing. So, this way, Faye. This lot here, I'm not going to show it to you all, but if you want to, I've done a blog post on doing a yarn crawl, doing yarn shopping in Madrid. Go and have a look at that, and you can see within that what I've bought. This little lot here is all Katia yarn, and again, this is like what I need to know when I'm saying you could substitute the yarn that I've used in this pattern for this. I need to have been able to have felt it, to know whether it's going to have that drape, whether it's got the strength that is needed. I need to have felt the yarn to know that. I can't just go to yarn substitute and go, that's roughly the same thing, that might work. I want to give you more detail than that. So, hence why there's that little haul of Katia yarn. But there was also a shop that only sold drops. Sorry, they sold more than drops, but they had every single drops range in that shop. And I mean, I didn't do the maths on it, but I'm pretty sure they had every single colour. So before I went, I looked at all of the drops that I already own for this kind of yarn substitution work, and I knew what I had, so therefore I knew where my gaps were that I was going to go and buy from this shop. So again, I won't go through them all, but I managed to feel and look at the blend and the content that I would be happy to suggest. So I got cotton merino, I got daisy, I got baby merino, I also got snow, which could be a really good substitute for one of the blankets that I need to do later this year. So it was a lot of yarn, and both times I went to the counter and the people that were serving me were like, oh, it's like, yes, I have purpose for all of them. But it was really helpful to be there, squish it, feel it, be able to look at the labels, and quickly work out whether it is a yarn that I would want to work with and whether it was a yarn that would be a good substitute for the work that I do. So hence why there's so much Katia and so much drops. But the bits that I want to like particularly highlight, one, because the great floof blog post continues. One of the yarns that I found from Katia is called Atenia, and it's a little bit of a different blend. It's lovely and soft, but it is virgin wool and cotton and cashmere, and it's coming in at, this is 25 grams and 175 meters, so slightly heavier than some of the other floofs, but I really liked it. So I got a couple of them because I have a design idea that I would like to use with them, and I want to marry it up with another one of their floof yarns, which is silk alpaca. This is natural colour, so it's completely undyed. So the streaking that you're seeing in there, the kind of lighter colour, is the silk, everything that's darker is the alpaca, and that is coming in at 150 meters for 25 grams. So although there's a slight difference in meterage, if I'm using a large hook, you're just not going to see that within this blend of yarns. So I will be doing a bit more work on that, and it will go into the big mohair floof blog post that I continue to build. I also got some of their silky mohair because I haven't tried that. I did try another Katia floof and I hated it for multiple reasons, so I kind of wanted to try and balance that up and see if I preferred some of their other stuff. I also found there is a brand called Shawl based in Spain. They do a huge variety of blends. A lot of them seem to have quite a lot of acrylic in it, which surprised me because of the temperatures in Spain. Like I really thought there would just be more natural fibres in the blends rather than acrylic. This one that I got is 100% bamboo, so it's got really good luster on it and it will have beautiful drape. So this kind of could do what the Camels yarn one is doing in the Omni shawl my crocheted shawl that I showed you earlier. This is going to give really similar drape. I think Shawl is widely available throughout Spain. Certainly I saw this stuff in a number of yarn shops, and it's also made in Spain. So it's another kind of commercial but local yarn that's available in Spain. So that will be a substitute, but I will also make it into something. And then, I don't know about you, but I really love buying like a sock yarn when I'm abroad. I really like souvenir socks. I think it's a great way of remembering holidays that you've had. Every time I put certain pairs of socks on my feet, it just brings back really nice memories. And so when I was in one of the yarn shops, I picked up a brand that I'd never come across before called Mondial. Seems to be an Italian brand. This is a very standard sock yarn. I just really like the way that the stripes worked up. I like the colours. I love self-striping sock yarn. This is 75% wool, 25% nylon, standard, 400 metres, 437 yards for 100 grams. And it feels like a nice sock yarn. So these will be my Madrid socks that I will pull together basically as a really nice little reminder, and I'll let you know what I think of Mondial. Off the top of my head, it feels an awful lot like with Yorkshire Spinners. It's got a little bit more fibrosity, more flyaway fibres coming off it than maybe the likes of Opal, so I'm hoping that maybe it will be a little bit softer than some of the Opal type brands, Regia as well. So yeah, really like that one. It is, let me see if I can get a colourway for you. It is colourway 475. If you've used Mondial, please let me know. But this was available as a brand in a number of the yarn shops that I visited. So a lot of them basically had Katia, Mondial, DMC. They were like, that was what was available. That's everything. Oh, it's not. That's not everything. So there was one yarn shop that was like what I would call very curated. There are two ways that I love a yarn shop. I like it to either be really highly curated, where everything that is in it is beautiful, beautifully laid out, cohesion of colours, like beauty. And that's what this yarn shop that I'm going to tell you was about was like. And I also love the other end, which is absolute jumble sale, where you have to go digging for the treasure, and probably the yarn shop owner doesn't even know what treasure they've got left in that shop because there are bags everywhere. There are like nooks and crannies with different yarn in there. And this one is called My Knitted Closet. And this is definitely at the premium curated end of the system. So I had been stalking this shop online because I really liked the look of it. And what I hadn't realised is the person that owns the yarn shop is also a knitwear designer. So the samples are around the shop are their samples. They're made from their designs, and they also have their own yarn brand. So the only brand that you find in that shop is their own brand, the Knitted Closet. They had a jumper which I had spied, which I really love. It's called the Sendero jumper. It's a raglan and it's got colour work, so ding ding ding, extra brownie points for my next colour work project. But it's a colour work raglan, which I'm interested in because when I went and tried on loads of jumpers back in December, what I discovered was I suit a raglan more than I suit a yoked sweater. So I knew that I was in line for finding myself a colour work raglan. The Sendero is exactly that. I will pop a photo up. And I'm really eager to get my needles into it. I reworked the colours that they have in theirs to be more my palette. So this gorgeous light blue, denim blue very much, is going to be my main colour. And then the ecru and the dark blue, and the blue is darker than it is showing up on my screen. They are going to be the actual colour work bits. What you probably can't see in the ecru is it also has tweedy neps in it. They're not just quite as obvious, but they are there, much like that darker blue has. So I picked up a jumper kit while I was there because I knew I wanted to make the jumper. It is unbelievably rare for me to knit or crochet in the yarn that the designer has used and suggested. And I thought, well, for once I'm just going to do it because I'm here. I like their yarn. It's manufactured in Italy, so not too far away. It's beautifully soft, and I'm going to actually try and be like a good little crafter and use what they've told me I should use. This yarn will be held double, so it's actually quite a nice thick jumper. But the blend of it is 100% superfine merino, and it's tweed. And then it is 350 meters per 50 grams. So the colours that I've got are, the dark one is called navy blue, and it's colour 650. That's probably a bit more representative as it's showing there actually. The denim blue, which is a little bit more jadey, kind of petrol-y than it looks here, is colour 630. It's called petrol. And the ecru one is called jasmine white, and that is colour 10010. So I'm looking forward to getting my hook into these. I don't know, not my hook, my needles into these. I don't know when that's going to happen. But that's like another souvenir thing that we got. I like going and buying yarn when I'm abroad, when I'm on holiday. I love nothing more than going somewhere where there are yarn shops and just seeing what else is out there. And I don't tend to buy a lot of stuff when we're away, but I will buy yarn when I'm away because I love it. I enjoy it so much. So that's everything that came back with me. Now, and then I got a message from my neighbour saying she had a parcel and something that I had back ordered at Unravel had arrived, and it is another jumper quantity. I've got issues. I don't care. Like, I freaking love yarn, and it's what I spend my money on, and I love it and I use it and it's great. But I can fully blame Amanda from Perfect Paw Times podcast for this, because she has made a jumper with this as one of the colours. It's a fade jumper. This like dirty tabby cat colourway is called Urbanite. The dye is the Urban Pearl, and it's their Merlin base, which is 90% superwash merino, 10% linen, and it's coming in at 366 meters over 100 grams, which is, I think, dot on 400 yards for 100 grams. So a sport weight yarn, and I think the colour that is shows it up as having a lot more orange in it, but actually it's just a lot dirtier than that. It's like peaty brown with iron ore, and I fell in love with it, and I have been trying to get this yarn for months. I've had lots of other people trying to go and get it for me from different festivals, and finally when she was at Unravel, she didn't have it with her, but I paid for 4 skeins. So depending on how this works up, it is going to be a knitted summer top, but also I want to make it as a crocheted summer top. I just need to make sure that the colour changes are quick enough for it to work in crochet. But my plan is to create a summer top that works, so it's essentially the same top for knit and for crochet, or it looks as similar as it can look. So that's why I got 4. Let's have a look. Oh, it's going to work. Those little colour blips are quite short, so that is going to work in crochet. Do you see that orange blip? That is short enough that it's not going to pull, and those black blips are also short enough that they are not going to pull. So that is great news. If you want to know more about that for crochet and how you can assess, like I just have a skein of yarn and go, are you going to pull, are you not? I will link to that blog post below for you, because it's simply all to do with the length of the dye that kind of shows up the most. Probably not making sense. The blog post will go into a lot more detail, but I will link to it below. So 4 of these came in as well, and I very much enjoyed unpacking them yesterday when I got my hands on them. So I have plans for them. Oh, so beautiful. Like, it's so dirty. I love it. Dirty, dirty yarn. Just grungy loveliness. Check out the Urban Pearl. Amazing colourways. What I would say is the website isn't like, it's not always the easiest to navigate. I think she's doing a lot of shows this year, and when that happens, the stock disappears and then it goes back up. This might be better to track her at yarn shows. The next one I think she's doing is East Anglia Yarn Festival. Go and have a look. Really nice bases, and the dyeing is just beautiful. So excited for this. I think that's everything. It's a lot of yarn. It's a lot of yarn. But it makes me happy. So if you want to know about Madrid and the yarn shops, if you're going there, if you just want to have a nosy about all the things that I bought when I was in Madrid at the yarn shops, I've kind of broken them down into lots of different categories. So which one I would go to for wool, which one I would go to for Spanish brands, where I would head to for the biggest variation, which one has got the notions, which ones are right in the city centre, and like where the premium one is. So I've tried to answer the things that you might be looking for, and given all the details for that location, what tube stock to get off of, and what their opening hours are, like current open hours. So if you're heading to Madrid, that would be a really good resource point for you to go and have a look at. And if you're not heading to Madrid and you think you might like to, then I've given some top tips in there for why I think it's like a really lovely city to go and visit as well. Right, I'm going to stop gassing now, and I'm going to go and crack on with some work, or some more work. As ever, thank you for being here with me. Lovely to see you. Hit me up in the comments. Love to know what you're working on and what you're up to. If you've had any yarn coming in like me, tell me what you've got. Love to know if you've tried Mondial. Let me know. I'd love to see what your thoughts are on it and whether you'd buy it again. Right, until next time, I am waving. Thank you.